Hello once again, and welcome to everyone who has watched up to this point. The episodes, sessions of this mini-series about the final week of Jesus during the time of Passover.
Exactly, precisely.
During Passover, exactly.
Hello everyone, and today there's going to be a conclusion.
Today we finish. Today we wrap up with this, how could we call it?
The last week.
With this one, yes, a beautiful, sad story. But it ends with joy, doesn't it? It's one of the few stories that are really sad because honestly, it's a really sad story. And in fact, what we're going to experience in today's episode is perhaps one of the pages that I think Jesus himself would have wanted to tear out. Because he also gives us a kind of hint that he wouldn't have wanted to reach this day, but it had to be this way. It just had to be. That's how the Father determined it, and he was always faithful to keep fulfilling it until the very last minute he had to live here on earth. Because being God, he had to come down here, where we are in fact, just a few meters away, behind that wall, lore.
Yes.
Behind that wall, I don't know if you can see some olive trees. I think you can.
Here, excuse me. Here?
There.
They have kind of grayish leaves. That big tree, right?
Yes.
And others that are here, let's see, for now, a little over there.
I moved there.
Those they're the ones with the little leaves that are kind of grayish, gray-green.
Yes. All of that is, well, nowadays it's part of a complex, and the complex has a name. In fact, the building you see there is called the Church of All Nations, and it's a modern structure that was built in 1950. In 1952 by an Italian architect named Edoardo Berlucci. What do you think? Did I create it? There are many churches here in the area known to many Italians as the Holy Land, Israel. So he was one of the people in charge of building all of this. It has its interesting details, but today we're not going to talk about the building itself. Instead, as we said before, we're going to focus on Jesus.
Exactly.
The person for whom we're doing all these sessions.
The sequence, yes, it's Jesus.
The sequence is Jesus, and obviously, as we said in the episode, before the previous one, there were many actors around, but Jesus is our focus. He is our center. And up to this point, we have seen that Jesus has just celebrated the supper with his disciples. That's where the name of the one who would eventually betray him is finally revealed. The one who would betray him. We talked a little about how it happened and maybe what led him to betray him, but also about the way it happened.
Exactly.
About how they forced him to go through with the plan. There's noise in the background. I hope you can hear me well, but maybe one more detail. I think that Judas, and don't get me wrong here, I'm not justifying his actions or anything like that, but I think he never imagined the outcome of the betrayal.
Yes, it's clear that even he himself didn't know how it was going to end.
Maybe they told him, and this is just my own speculation.
I'm sure, I think so.
That they probably told him, we just want to question him, we want to bring him here.
We want to talk to him or at most put him in jail, but...
And we're going to talk to him, have him show us who he is. But I think they never revealed to him the plan to have him crucified, because I think that until that very moment, no one knew that he was also going to be crucified. Everything went away.
Yes, the disciples didn't want to discuss that topic because they said no.
Jesus was the only one who knew, but none of the others, not even the Sanhedrin. I don't think they understood that this was finally going to happen. They obviously wanted his death, but when it happened, I think there was a great silence in the city of Jerusalem in those days. I think it was the worst Passover of all. I'm not saying that they regretted it.
No, they wanted to, but never thought they actually would.
Exactly. I mean, I don't think they ended up happy and content. Yes, there is in the Midrash. I was about to speak to you in Hebrew. There is in the Midrash, yes, something that contradicts what I'm saying. The Midrash is rabbinic books. Yes, it's a collection of rabbinic books, which tells you that they did not regret crucifying Jesus during Passover. Some leaders say that, but I think they say it to show that we have killed the one who, yes, questioned who the true God was.
Yes, that we got him out of the way.
Yes. In some way, I think it was to show others not to dare rise up like he did, because this is the end.
Yes, and also to reassure our own followers that we did the right thing. Exactly.
It's like justifying a cause, but I don't think it's wholehearted when it comes to this. But well, time will tell. The Lord is the one who has the final word, not me. Like I said, it's pure speculation on my part, but knowing the Hebrew people as I do, they do many things that they later regret. So, I think that was one of them. And you simply can't say, I regret it. You just try to cover it up in a diplomatic way.
Yes, but we also have to clarify that whether or not they regret it, the death, and the resurrection, the death had to happen no matter what.
No matter what, it was part of God's plan.
First, we're not trying to say that if they had repented, this wouldn't have happened. No.
No, it was going to happen anyway.
Because in order to resurrect, he had to die. So either way. Yes.
They had to kill him.
Of course, that's why you also mentioned, well, we'll read it later about Judas.
Yes.
That's all well and good, but woe to him.
Yes.
I mean, anyway, 2 from A.
Yeah, unfortunately, well, it just happened to him, poor guy. How about we read? Poor guy. This part, let's remember, Jesus doesn't manage to finish the Pesach dinner, the Passover, the one where he said, how much I have desired to sit with you, to eat this Passover, to eat this Pesach. And in the end, the dinner was never completed. There was debate. They started arguing about who would be the greatest until they got to the topic of Pesach. Who is going to betray me?
Who is going to betray me?
And then the one who, as we saw before, is the one who betrays me. He leaves, he goes, Judas.
He goes.
And then tension builds. And the Bible tells us that Jesus, as we saw before, leaves the place where he was and comes behind this wall. Let's forget about this wall.
Again.
And let's forget about the construction, let's forget about the pavement, and let's just focus on the fact that there were trees here. But not only trees, as we said in the previous episode, there were also oil presses here. The olive ones, the olive presses.
Also, all of this wasn't just limited to this part, but it extended along the street and everything, right? That's true. So that's in Gethsemane, which is right in front of us.
It's important to note that this day doesn't start in the morning like the previous episodes, but rather it begins at dawn between night and early morning.
Every day starts at night, but what we mean is that the events we described before started in the morning, but this one starts at daylight, right? This one starts before morning, in the early hours before dawn.
Let's agree, as Lore says, that in the Hebrew calendar, and clarify this, that's why many people even today get confused about the 3 days of Jesus' resurrection. Because they count according to the Gregorian calendar, and the Hebrew calendar is completely different.
Of course, exactly.
The day here starts and ends with the appearance of the first 3 stars between 6 and 6:30 in the evening. So we were in the day that begins, the new day, which would be around 9 or 10 at night. Dinner ends, Jesus comes here and spends a few hours praying, because he wasn't someone who prayed just for a few minutes. In fact, it says he went a stone's throw away, and the disciples couldn't even pray for an hour, right?
Exactly.
There was plenty of time. In short, he comes here to the Garden of Gethsemane, and what happens, happens. Let's read.
Well, I'll pick up where you said you left off, which is Matthew 26:45. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Sleep now," because he had already come. He found them sleeping, and he told them again, "Sleep now and rest. Behold, the hour has come, and the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. See, the one who betrays me is approaching." And while he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, came, and with him a large crowd with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priests and the elders of the people. And the one who was betraying him had given them a sign, saying, "The one I kiss is the one, arrest him." And immediately he went up to Jesus and said, "Greetings, teacher," and kissed him. And Jesus said to him, "Friend, why have you come?" Then they came forward and laid hands on Jesus. And they seized him, but one of those who was with Jesus, reaching out his hand, drew his sword and struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Then Jesus said to him, "Put your sword back in its place, for all who take up the sword will perish by the sword. Do you think that I cannot now pray to my Father, and he would not provide me with more than 12 legions of angels? But then how would the scriptures be fulfilled, that it must happen this way?" At that moment, Jesus said to the crowd, "Have you come out with swords and clubs to arrest me as if I were a thief? Every day I sat with you teaching in the temple, and you did not arrest me. But all this has happened so that the writings of the prophets may be fulfilled." Then all the disciples left him and fled.
They fled. I think that was the most difficult night for Jesus. Let's see. We have a lot of details here, but let's summarize it. As we said, let's summarize everything that happens to Jesus. I've always said, Lore, every time we come here with the groups and visit these places, I've always said that without Gethsemane, the cross doesn't make sense. Because Jesus wasn't the only one who was crucified. At that time, they crucified a lot of people. All those who stirred up the people, troublemakers, thieves, criminals, as they called them, murderers, yes. All of those were deemed worthy of death by crucifixion. That's how it was. Jesus, in fact, remember, and you all remember, that Jesus was not alone. There were thieves next to him, both on his left and on his right. So Jesus was not the only one crucified. He was just one more among all those who were crucified back then. So the cross is indeed important because it is the final step and it is part of the biblical prophecy. It says that he was going to be crucified on a wooden cross, but Gethsemane was the final test. The final test? Why? Because it's the moment when he is left completely alone. We just read that. Those who had just had dinner with him, not only did Judas leave him or betray him, but the rest also left him.
Yes, they ran away.
Could we say that leaving you alone in front of your enemies is a form of betrayal? Possibly, because if we are all soldiers and we go to the front lines, you leave me alone? Or do I leave you alone? Somehow, I'm not fighting alongside you. It's a way of betraying you too. But I believe that in the long run, not only did Judas end up betraying him, but his disciples did too, and many times we do it as well. One way or another, betrayal can disguise itself, or it can dress up in different ways. Ultimately, it can also be a betrayal. Jesus ends up being left alone. Emotionally, as a human, you have to feel really sad. You'd been walking with them the whole time. In fact, you just spent time with them because you wanted to enjoy the last hours you had left to live, and you wanted to enjoy it with them. You wanted to have a good time with them. And you laughed with them, like we saw in the previous episodes and everything you enjoyed there, right? Like we talked about tasting Marta's food and everything else. In the end, they leave him alone. For Jesus, that must have been a moment of deep sadness, but it's okay. We know that he already knew, that he already expected that this was going to happen, because remember that Elijah and Moses had already told him before.
Yes.
What they told him about what would happen when they appeared at the Transfiguration. Do you remember? Yes.
Transfiguration, yes.
Transfiguration. They told him what would happen soon, so he was somewhat prepared. Jesus already knew what was going to happen, but not only did they leave him alone, the kiss of death also appears. With a kiss, you betray me. I was with you every day, and this is how you come after me. I mean, what am I exactly? But not only does that happen, it also says that at the moment of prayer, he becomes weak. These scriptures remind us.
When he was praying, exactly. The disciples were there, they fell asleep.
And it says that at a certain moment, they had to come, no, an angel had to come to strengthen him. That's what Luke tells us. It then says that as the angel strengthened him, Jesus prayed even more intensely. And that's kind of where he regained strength he no longer had. Because remember this too, he says, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. So he's asking, in other words, he's saying, is there another way to do this? Is there another way to do this? He knew that physically he was going to start suffering. Look, it wasn't easy to be in his place.
No,
Because as a human, he was going to feel the blows.
I think that's also why that miracle happened, that even an angel was serving him. Because even support wasn't enough for him, not even that support. If his companions had prayed at all, assuming they hadn't fallen asleep. Anyway, he needs strength from everywhere in order to be able to make that decision. As you said, the decision was made in Gethsemane, not on the cross,
Yes,
and to be able to move forward, right?
yes, there's a book. I can't remember the title, but I used to read it when I was little. I think it must still be in bookstores somewhere, by Max Lucado. And it was, and the angels were silent. And he actually talks about the nails, and he talks about all of this, right? But I believe the angels began to fall silent in Gethsemane. Except for one, whom the Lord says, go over there, help her, go over there because you have to go. Who could it have been? It doesn't tell us. It was likely the messenger angel. There was one who delivered messages. Let's remember that Michael is the one who fights for his people, but there was one who was the messenger, whose name was Gabriel. I can't say for sure that it was Gabriel, but Gabriel could have probably appeared on the scene again. The one who had spoken to Mary and was the one who came to deliver all the news. It was probably him who came and started talking to Jesus. But again, it was probably him who said, hey, cheer up, don't forget that you came for 1, 2, 3, 4. It says he starts praying more intensely there. He stands up and what happens, happens. He already foresaw that this was going to happen, that they were going to leave him alone, that they were going to beat him, and everything else that was about to come. Because from now on, they pick him up here in this Garden of Gethsemane and end up taking him to the high priest's house where the conspiracy was hatched. Which we saw before.
You know?
In that very same place is where they take him and keep him all night. And then in the morning, they end up taking him to the fortress we saw from above. Remember when we were there on day 1 and we saw the Antonia fortress? If you hear us mention day 1, day 2, day 3, or day 4, it might confuse you. It's because you haven't seen the episodes. So you have to go watch the episodes for day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and day 5. Remember, we're on day 6, so they take him to the Antonia fortress. Jesus is judged there. He is sentenced. They start there too, with Herod first. Take him to Pilate. And that's where the scourging of Jesus begins, which is known as the scourging.
Where they beat him.
Not only did they beat him before, because it says that they even spat on him at the high priest's place, but here they are also going to end up beating him. That is to say, he had already arrived beaten. Here they beat him again. Over there, the Jews beat him. Here, the Roman soldiers beat him.
Of course, that's true.
And here, the Roman soldiers start taking him directly after the trial, where Pilate washes his hands. The blood of this righteous man, in other words, he said, is on you, because I find no fault in him. Let's remind ourselves that he was possibly walking around him, and you are God. You are the king. They put a crown on him, remember? He was beaten. He was hurt. They put purple garments on him.
The purple cloak, yes.
Exactly. They mocked him. They mocked God.
Yes.
Via Holophotes, see you. Walking towards what was already the final path where there was no turning back. Physically, he was completely battered, in pain, broken. What they told him came true.
He said to his disciples,
It is necessary for all this to happen. Finally, he arrives at the place where they were going to nail his hands and feet, where the spear would pierce his body, and where they would finish burying him. They take him down, they bury him. History tells us that they had to hurry.
of course.
Because the Sabbath was coming, we remember that we are in the week of Passover. In the week of Pesach, we have 3.
Shabbat.
Shabbat, or 3 days of rest. It is usually one Shabbat. Let's remember that the week lasts 7 days. And so we have the first Shabbat, the week in the middle, that is the main day, which is the Passover dinner. And the next Shabbat, which will end after closing the festival.
The end.
Which is the day of the Feast of First Fruits.
It's called Shabbat, not because it is the Sabbath day, but because it is a day of rest. Exactly, since it's the beginning.
The feast and the closing.
It's taken as, let's remember, Shabbaton.
It's the Feast of Unleavened Bread, so it lasts 7 days. One thing is Pesach, which is the night itself, and another thing is the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which lasts 7 days. And the final day is the day of the Feast of Bikurim in the wave offerings. That is the day when Jesus finally rises from the dead, which is the Feast of First Fruits. Jesus rises as the first fruits of all those who will rise with him. Again. So this was a brief summary.
A great summary because you covered a lot of points and it kind of helps us organize them. Yes. In a good way.
Yes. This is where we come to the end of this series that we've been on since day 1. We hope you have enjoyed this material. We thank God for this time he has given us.
Yes.
This nice temperature too, a good temperature, a time of silence. And yes,
Calm too, right?
calm too, exactly. So thank you to each and every one of you for being there. And I think we didn't say it in the previous videos, but if you like this whole series, share the entire series with anyone you think could be blessed by it. Share it.
Yes. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. I learned a lot too, obviously, as always. But I really hope this can be useful for to go deeper, to learn a little more about this date, about this celebration, which is so closely related to Jesus, wherever you are. So may it also help you grow spiritually. And obviously try to read and go deeper into the verses. We only read a few, just some portions, but you can continue so you can have your own personal reading plan. And well, may God also speak to you through this.
Thank you all. God bless you. Shalom. Until our next adventure in the land of the Bible, greetings to everyone.
Bye-bye.